to in regards to your professional experiences, your likes, dislikes, opinions, being a student to not a student, transitioning to the workforce, having to work with me, all of these stuff that people probably want to know about. Please be polite though. Speak freely. Don't. I want this to be real and authentic. Just don't burn me too much, please. So how about you start, would you like to start rather, with a bit of a backstory, like who you are, what you do, and sort of how you got into study and into your workforce and this career?
Okay, so I'm Steph. I am a myotherapist and strength and conditioning coach. I guess from where it started, playing soccer, football, at a young age, that's probably what got me into strength conditioning in the first, or exercise science in the first place. Going through seasons, injuries, return to sport, recovery, working with physios, I knew that I wanted to do something along the lines of that. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that was where it was at. And if I could do it playing or working with football players, that for me would be a bonus. It wasn't essential, but if I could do it, I thought that would be awesome. And I suppose that's what led me into exercise science. I guess that's sort of the backstory. Nothing really fancy or anything like that.
Yep. So you're obviously a player and went through your own injuries and wanted to learn more and try and help yourself and help other people. How long did you play for?
I played since I was 10, I'd say 10 or 11. So almost maybe 12 years, I'd say. Yeah, I stopped playing 2 years ago, so I'd say about 12 years.
And when did you first decide that you wanted to go to uni? And you studied myotherapy first. That was your first degree, yeah?
No, so the myotherapy came sort of mid to late exercise science degree. I ended up doing both at the same time. I knew I always wanted to go to uni. I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then in year 12, it was sort of an option between physio and exercise science. And I didn't want to do physio because I wasn't exactly sure that that's what I wanted to do. So I thought I'd pick exercise science since it was a lot broader. That way I had a few more options.
Yeah, cool. So walk us through that decision to firstly study. So straight out of school, you went to uni, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you weren't exactly sure, so you chose exercise science to be more broad. So from that point in time, if you can give us more, share your transitioning period from deciding to go in sports science at uni, and then we'll build from there if you can, please.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose first year of exercise science, went in not having any idea what the course was about. I think it's such a broad course, which I don't think is a bad thing, but if you're not sure what you want to do, there are so many options. So the course that I studied was exercise science sport practice, and that was at Vic Uni, and they also offered probably about 10 different other streams. So for me, it was sort of, I didn't actually know what exercise science meant, what it meant to be an exercise scientist, what job I would get out of it. So the first year for me was, I guess I was really lost the first year. I had no idea what, sort of why I was learning those subjects, what I was doing. And it wasn't until probably the second year and then late third year where I actually had an idea of what I wanted to do. It took me a while.
It's crazy though, and this is why I wanted to have this chat with you, because the amount of students going into university at the moment, and the amount of students like just existing in a course or an enrollment, to then trying to figure out what they're going to do, but then transitioning from that course into the real world. It's just such a non-educated process, and nobody's actually helping people. And you've just described it perfectly. I was the same, because I just chose my course based on the description. I thought, oh yeah, I can possibly do this, this, and this. And first year, you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, that's such a broad course. So I did what did I do? A bachelor's of sports coaching and exercise science. So I did all the sports science, exercise science modules that tied it into sports coaching. The reason I chose my course was because I had some friends that went through exercise science and sports science, and the person or the coach that they were when they came out of that course was a little bit interesting. They weren't able to actually coach. They weren't actually able to educate or teach. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, but that particular course for them didn't teach them how to relate to people. It didn't teach them how to get out into a sports field or into a basketball court and capture 20 athletes at a time and introduce what they'd actually learned in the textbook or the course. So I think there's a massive loophole in this information for students, transitioning from course selection to then getting out of uni and actually coaching or teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so second and third year, you said you started studying Myo as well. So can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so I actually, second year I actually deferred, or after, I guess, I suppose it was third year, it was supposed to be my third year, so I deferred to complete my certificate or diploma in remedial massage. I went through, during the second year, a certificate, so I was studying the certificate of massage as well as the exercise science. And the reason why I did that was because I actually had a friend that was a remedial massage therapist. And I was sort of having a chat to her, and I said to her, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure what job title I would get out of exercise science. And she at the time was working with a football club. She was AFL football club. She was the sports, I guess, massage therapist, sports trainer. She was basically running the whole, recovery, injury, performance taping, all that sort of stuff. She was basically running it for the team. And she goes, why don't you come down, see what it's like, see what I do, and maybe see if you'd be interested in something like that. So I went in, and it was mostly, taping, massage work. They were doing recovery in the ice baths, things that I hadn't seen before. Playing football throughout the seasons, I had seen, obviously, your standard taping, your standard massage work before a game, but there wasn't any importance on recovery. There wasn't any strength training. If you were injured, you would just sit out. Whereas if they were injured, they were, on bikes, still trained, still doing some form of training. And I thought, this is really cool. I want to do something like this. So I went and got my certificate in massage and my sports taping certificate. And I thought, yeah, maybe I want to do sports training for a little bit on the side. And after doing the certificate in massage, I absolutely loved anatomy. I loved the physiology side. We were taught in a way that was a little bit different to uni, the exercise science degree. And I suppose the class was really small as well. So you got that interaction with your teachers, a little bit different to what I was getting with the exercise science course. And from then I decided I actually wanted to do remedial massage. And then from remedial massage, I started learning more about injury prevention, or reducing the risk of injury, working with clients that had an injury, what to do with that, how to go about it. And from that, I thought, I actually want to study myotherapy. I want to go on and start treating people, start doing sort of rehab work with them, strength work. I was very fortunate that in my remedial massage course, one of my lecturers was actually an exercise physiologist.
That helps.
So his knowledge was just insane, and I was always staying back late, after class and picking his brains. And he was working with athletes at the time, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to do something like that, and I want to start studying myotherapy. And I thought, maybe, you know, as a myotherapist, I can start intertwining that and exercise science together and creating something out of that. So then I went back to exercise science, finished off the third year, and at the same time I was studying myotherapy. And I guess that led me into I guess I had a better understanding of what I wanted to do, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess, you know, if we roll this out to the people listening, some of our viewers on our social media are students. I've got probably 5 or 6 people at the moment who, you know, pre-COVID were actually wanting to come on and do an internship or an upkeep, or, you know, pop into the gym to learn from yourself, Steph, and from myself. So if anyone is tuning into this and listening, Steph's one of our awesome coaches, and everything she's just described, her path of learning and becoming a person that can integrate, you know, myotherapy, sports science, strength conditioning into one, you know, proper and appropriate style of rehab or training is phenomenal. So, you know, we're very privileged to have Steph on board. I'm definitely learning from her, you know, every day that we used to get to work together. At the moment, obviously we can't. But for all of the students listening to this, I think this, you know, this interview will be very beneficial for you. Talk to me about internships. I know you've done a few, and we'll go from internship to like mentorship or any of your sort of paid upkeep intakes rather, and then we'll talk about Oxidate after that, if that's cool.
Yeah, sure. So third year I was, we had to do an internship of some sort. That was part of the unit that we were completing. So my first internship was with Calder Cannons Football Club, AFL. It was mostly sports taping. So it was a sports trainer sort of position. I did a lot of sports taping, a lot of massage work. That was sort of my first introduction to high performance strength conditioning, because they had a huge high performance team. They had a gym, they had emphasis on recovery, activation, you know, proper sort of warm up. So that was my first real, I guess, exposure to that, which I thought was awesome. But having the role that I had as an intern, it was only sort of sports training, was taping, was massaging. So for me, I wanted more than that. I wanted to be behind the high performance coach. I wanted to be, you know, listening to what they were saying. I wanted to be looking at how they operate, how they work, what programs they write, why they write them. I wanted a little bit more out of that. So after completing the internship there, I went on and applied for an internship at Melbourne Victory. So I worked a season with Melbourne Victory women's team. And for me, I thought that was the best thing ever at the time. That was the coolest thing ever, to have a role there, and especially working with female athletes. So I worked there for a season, and I actually got to take recovery sessions. I was able to stay back with the high performance coach and learn about, ask heaps of questions. So learn about the role he played, what exercises he would prescribe, the testing that he would do, why he'd choose the warm-ups. I'd be there on game day. We'd talk about game day prep, recovery after game day, all the sort of works. So that for me was awesome. And it also shined a light, I suppose, on the industry itself and what was sort of behind the scenes that I guess you don't expect to see. So going in, I thought, you know, they would have the best facilities, the coaches would get paid serious amounts of, you know, money. And after having a chat to the high performance coach, it was, you know, it was pretty much like a voluntary position that he was doing. A lot of, you know, late nights after our work that wasn't paid for. The GPS systems that he was using, he had to fork out, you know, out of his own pocket. So there were a lot of things that, you know, I think uni makes you believe that as a, you know, if you want to be a coach in the strength conditioning world, then you need to work with elite athletes, and it's sort of the the best and the only area that you can work in. And if you don't, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to make it. And so for me, that was a little bit of a learning curve, that it wasn't all it looked, they made it out to be. And it was very different. So I guess for me that internship was extremely important. And it sort of put me off wanting to work with in an elite environment, I suppose, after seeing that. And I went on after that to complete a mentorship with Christian Woodford.
Can I, before you jump into the next one, I think there's some gold in what you've just said, if you don't mind me interjecting.
Yeah.
Some of the things you said, sports coaching, you would have thought that these coaches are getting paid a mozza and, it's all fantastic, especially at the top end of the spectrum. First point, women's football, unfortunately, it's come a hell of a long way, and it's still evolving, and it should become better than men's football. There's a lot of resources and time and great people who are doing great things there, but for a long time, it just hasn't been good enough, not in any context. Take away the women's and males component of it, just elite sports in general. Elite sports in general with high performance coaches, strength and conditioning coaches. Australian sports science, although we have some of the best facilities, our wage or our commitment in terms of monetary, it's just not there as a job. So as a career and as a profession, massive newsflash for any student who's listening to this, the money just isn't there. So if you're here for the money, I would highly suggest you choose a different career, because as Steph's just described, it is late night hours, it's horrible shifts, it's outdoor training, it's, player liaising, talking to 4 or 5 different people within the one structure to communicate, training, rehab, performance, that type of stuff. If you're a student, you've probably got 2 or 3 years of voluntary work to earn your stripes, to gain the experience, to understand what it is, or you want to do or don't want to do. And that's just the harsh reality. Like, I've probably worked at least 3 years, not total, not every day, 9-hour days, but snippets a couple of times a week, or 5-8 hours a week for free for at least 3 years. And I hope that changes. I hope that the courses at uni get better. I hope that people like you and I, Steph, can educate other students to be more efficient in their studies, to be more efficient in their decisions, and give better education and knowledge to help, eliminate 3 years of unpaid work to get there, because that's what we've done and are doing. And it's not the nicest of processes, but it is a very, very timely, process to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, before we jump into the mentorship, as a student going into the workplace and coaching for the first time, you said it was quite good and it was awesome, but some of the stuff that you didn't get, like what's some stuff that you feel that was missing, and you could probably, if you went back again, you'd either try and get that, or you can share with somebody to try and correct that?
In terms of when I was completing the internships?
Yeah, so as a student in an internship, probably some things that you didn't get that you wish that you had of, or that now that you didn't back then, or something.
Yeah, I guess I think a huge thing that I wish that I had more of, and I didn't actually get until I completed the internship with you guys at Oxidate, was being able to be out on the floor and have some sort of role where I'm actually in charge. Not necessarily just in charge, but being able to coach. Being able to, run through a warm up on my own, or, with the coach next to me, being able to program, being given little tasks, little homework tasks that would go away, right? Go back to the high performance coach, get them to review it. That's probably something that I wish I had more of, because I didn't get that when I was with my first internship, and I didn't get that in the second internship. I was able to, I did run a recovery session, which was awesome, but it wasn't what I wanted to. I wanted to be able to maybe, run a strength session, or learn what I need to program for, X, Y, and Z, little things like that. being able to communicate that with athletes as well, that's something that I think is really, really important, because you're taught all the core knowledge when you're in uni, but you don't get taught the communication skills. You don't get taught how to
apply it.
Yeah, how to apply it. Exactly.
And again, to chime in, for me, obviously being a student myself and then having the privilege to be able to have an intern. So Steph, we did a 3-month internship initially, and Steph's been with us for, I think it's come up to 2 years now.
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. And again, we're super, super privileged, and we're going to do some awesome, awesome things together once we're allowed, once COVID disappears. But it's been a long, long process for you. I do apologize how long it's been, but at the same time, I'd hope that, we're giving you the tools, and it'll either teach you what you don't want to do, what not to do, or something that might help you to become the coach that I know you can be and you are. So starting the internship, putting out the application where we're actually looking for an intern, my biggest, the biggest point for me that I wanted to try and do was to make sure I gave somebody who is a student what I didn't get. And that's the way that I coach. I was a player for a long time. The reason I coach the way I do is to give that 5 or 10% that I didn't receive, that I felt that I needed or I should have had. And it was the same for that internship. Allow the person, it turned out to be you, to actually coach, because you can read a book, you can listen to a webinar, you can study for as long as you like, but if you're not doing it and physically, engaging it, you're never going to learn, because it's quite different. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Continue on. I'll be quiet now. The mentorship.
Next up was mentorship. So my third, that would have been end of second year and all of my third year, I completed the mentorship with Christian Woodford, and that was once a week at his facility, a session on sort of strength training programming, and then an hour worth of sitting down, talking, upskill. And that was sort of, I guess that was my first real exposure to being able to coach. So one thing Woodford did that was awesome was we would walk in, and there were only, I think we would have only been about 5 of us. And if he was training an athlete, he would tell us to go over, and he would walk off and he would let us coach them. And if we weren't sure what to say or what to do, he would guide us. And he would just put us in the most uncomfortable situations where we wouldn't have done it on our own. Me personally, I wouldn't have had the confidence to coach someone. And he would just keep putting you on the spot and exposing you to all these different areas where, you just wouldn't be comfortable, and you need to build. It's something that you need to have. And that for me was huge. That was a huge learning curve on things that I needed to work on, things that I wasn't necessarily good at. And a huge thing I learned from that is you can learn and absorb as much information as possible. But if you can't explain that to an athlete, if you can't get an athlete in a particular position or explain to them, your benefits or what they're doing and why they're doing it, and if you can't build a relationship with your client, then it's pointless. You sort of, yeah. Absolutely.
That's really cool. So obviously another fantastic coach in the industry. He's done a lot of great things in his time. And I've actually done one of his courses as well, like a 1-day little seminar that he did. It's level 1. So really cool stuff. I had a talk with a coach, Adam, this morning in Sydney, and we're talking about upskilling, leveling up. As a coach in the industry, if you're not continually trying to learn, or, if there's a great coach over here, learn some of their techniques and understand why they do it, then you're probably not going to go anywhere fast, because, the years of the old school coaches and that old school methodology, they're gone. So it's time for us younger, coaches, the new age coach, new demographic to come through and really change things. So I think it's, super important. Continue learning and learn off some of the best, most definitely.
And I think you have to be open to learning as well. I think you're taught, for example, with my mentorship, obviously everything I was taught was Christian's way, sort of Christian, the way Christian operates, the way he programs. If I was to step out and then as a coach only listen to everything sort of he said and only program that certain way and not listen to what everyone else was coach, or the different ways everyone else was coaching and their opinions on different things, and you're missing a huge chunk of it. I think you've got to be open to listening to everyone else's methods, because chances are there's something that you don't know, or there might be something a little bit more efficient that you can learn from. So I think that's, rather than being sort of one way and sort of one direction and a little bit hard-headed, I think you've got to be open to listening to other people's advice and the way other people have learned and what other people are using
and why.
And why. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we're at the end of the day, we're coaching people, and people are probably sick of listening to me say people first, athlete second. That's the big new theme. It's not new at all, but if you're coaching 10 people, there's 10 different personalities, there's 10 different learning styles potentially, there's 10 different sets of belief systems, there's all of this stuff. So if you just follow one format or one style or one deliverance, you're going to miss 90% of that. So again, going back to this morning's chat, learning different ways, but trying them on yourself or trying them with your own clients, mastering them, figuring out what works for you or for that particular client is probably the best feedback I can give, because there isn't a one size fits all. And if you mold 4 different coaching philosophies or styles into your own hybrid, version, then for me, that's awesome. That's the way forward. And
I even apply that to my clients when I'm treating as a myotherapist. At uni, we were taught, client A comes in with this presentation. If they are, if you can tick off all these symptoms, that means they have this diagnosis. And it is not the way at all. You can have 2 clients with lower back pain, and one client will present completely different to the other client. And it's not, it's not textbook. It's not like that at all. It's completely different. So for me, that was a huge learning curve as well, being able to apply that to myotherapy with my clients and actually understanding that things that we've learnt during the course, diagnosis and symptoms and special tests, they don't always apply to all your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it's a good time to ask this question. So what's your Instagram name? Are you Myo Strength Performance?
Yeah, so S.Myo Strength Performance. Yeah.
S.Myo Strength Performance. So I think one of the coolest things about everything you've just described about you as a coach is the myo and the strength conditioning. Talk to me about and you've just touched on it briefly there, what myo is potentially lacking, whether it is that diagnosis, but also in the treatment plan as well. Like, what do you find to be a massive, gray area or a negative area that's happening?
Yeah. So I think I see a lot of clients, I suppose, coming in and they're already expecting a massage. They're already having the belief that massage is the way to go and it's what's going to fix them. And what I'm trying to do, or what I've learned over the years, is to start getting clients to actually put the responsibility on the clients, so they're not relying on us and they're more so a little bit more independent. And I suppose education is a huge thing as well. And going back to what you were speaking about, athlete, person first, athletes or client second, yep. That also applies as a myotherapist when you're treating. When I first went into treating as a remedial, it was always just thinking about the body and the muscles and, this is a muscle, I need to do this and this to it. Whereas now I'm not just thinking about what's going on, throughout the muscle in that specific particular area. I'm thinking about the person. I'm thinking about what they're going through, whether they have, what we call external factors, stresses that may be contributing to their pain. It's much more than just, an injury or, an acute little niggle. It goes beyond that. And I think that's something that is probably missing being able to educate clients, and also not just look at a textbook and think, well, they have these symptoms, so this must be their diagnosis. Let's just give them a bunch of exercises. These exercises should fix it. I think it's much more than that. It's you've got to understand the client. You've got to understand what they're going through. You've got to try and address all that first before you give them all these exercises, because if your client has a lot of factors that are bothering them, or a lot of factors that are going on in their life, and you might be able to throw them, the best exercises that you found will work. If you're not addressing those other external factors, no amount of perfect exercise is going to make the difference.
I think they call that the flashlight or spotlight approach. You just hone in on the acute area, and everything else is in the dark. So, I've just put out an ebook. It's in the marketing funnel for this program. It's about injury prevention and why your current injury prevention program won't work. And part of it is the spotlight approach. I've got a sore calf. Well, let's treat the calf. Let's not look at all these internal factors, what's contributing to that. That's awesome. What about strength? So strength in Myo, which is what your name is on Instagram, actually getting patients or clients to strengthen and introduce proper strength training. Can you talk to me about that, please? For us.
Absolutely. What I found in sort of, I suppose, recent times is, take it back to maybe last year, I was giving clients any sort of strength exercise I was throwing at clients, do this, do that, you get stronger in this position. Whereas now, I suppose it's sort of changed a little bit. It's, yes, strength is sort of the foundation. Strength is, you need strength. That's, if you are strong in in every area possible, you're less likely to break down. Now more than ever, my emphasis is just on movement in general. Especially now, I guess, given that we're in isolation for Melbourne, Victoria, post closing down and not being able to treat, a lot of clients were actually coming in with, lower back pain and neck pain, and it was basically just from sitting and working at home. So for me, strength, wasn't something that, giving them heaps of exercises wasn't something that they necessarily needed at that point in time. It was more so just movement, and that movement could be anything. So I guess it depends on the client as well. So for those clients, just getting up every half an hour or something, going for a walk, trying to do some exercise with the weights or equipment that they did have, just getting them out of being stuck in one position for long periods of time. That's something that I think they needed, as opposed to just throwing them a strength program and saying, you need to be stronger, do these exercises, and you'll be fine. So I think it's very dependent on the client as well and what they're presenting with.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Okay, so continuing on from that timeline, from your mentorship program, what came next?
So let's see, November of my last year at uni, I was going through exam prep for my exams, and I had months before that, I had clicked on an ad that was Oxidate Performance, and I had looked through your Instagram page and gave you guys a follow, because I thought this is cool. This is something I hadn't seen before, football related, strength, awesome. So decided to give you guys a follow, and then that around about, I think would be November time, there was an Instagram story with Oxidate advertising an internship position. So I sort of, finishing off the year, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. I knew that I wanted to be a coach in the industry, but I didn't know how I was going to go about it. And in my head, I thought, maybe get into another internship. If you get into another internship, work your ass off, and that may potentially lead into a job. So that opportunity came up, and I thought, awesome, I'm going to take it. It's football related. It's actually what I wanted. So sent you guys an email, and 2 years later, here we are.
That's a very long time for you, Steph. Just to add to that, so yeah, like awesome, like so grateful that you did apply for that. And before jumping on this call with you, I was like, going right back there and just remembering what it was like, and the first couple of sessions, that session we had and we're talking about warm-ups and programs and all that type of stuff. So for me as a coach to actually start to try and help another coach and to teach a coach, for me personally, it's been such a rewarding and awesome experience. And you've literally, given me all of this awesome energy towards wanting to do better and to learn myself, and obviously to try and help you and help us and become an educator. So I thank you for that. It's we're only just beginning, I hope, of what comes next. But being able to teach somebody else and work with somebody else and learn off them has been huge. And Steph did work super hard initially. That first 3 months, there was some very tough situations and tough coaching predicaments to be in. But I'm also a firm believer of, like you described before with Woodford, that you've got to be thrown in the deep end. You've got to be kept on your toes. You've got to learn, your own experiences and to fend for yourself and that type of stuff. So it's the only way to learn properly. Okay, talk to me about coaching, Steph. So you started working with us, you're in this internship, you got thrown into the deep end. And by deep end, I mean you're coaching 20 odd junior athletes at a time. Did you coach more than that at one time? I think it was 2 teams.
2 teams at one point, yeah.
So if you're a coach or a student out there, imagine coaching 2 teams of 12-year-old kids, unsupervised, just yourself, and it's part of a new coaching gig. So it's pretty full on. Steph absolutely owned it. And if you can talk to us about that, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, so I worked with 3 teams between the ages of 12 and 16. That was for a 6-week program, I think it was. Yep. Out on the field, something that I hadn't done before. Coaching a team, another thing I hadn't done before. And that for me was huge. I was nervous. I wasn't sure whether or not they would listen to me. And that's going back to communication is everything. These are things that you haven't been taught at uni. These are things that you won't get taught at uni unless you're out in the industry, unless you're out in the field actually doing it. No textbook can teach you the right type of communication. So for me, it was going through trying to educate athletes, young junior athletes, that don't understand fancy words, like injury prevention and, all these, the names of your hamstrings, and they don't even know what a hamstring is. And, so really having to break it down into ways that they can actually understand, that was a huge challenge. And also getting them to listen and to, I suppose, appreciate it, to understand what they were doing, why they were doing it as well, while keeping them interested. That was something that was a huge challenge. And, in a short amount of time, we were able to, at the start of the 6-week program, we tested them through a different range of tests. And then the 6-week, we did a retest, and what we gained through that. And it was something so simple. There was nothing fancy to it. It was such a basic, good program, and they benefited so much, and they had such awesome results. So that was really, really cool to see. And the fact that, I did that, it was huge. It was, I actually got out there and put myself out there and spoke in front of, 60 players, young kids, all junior boys, all the coaches were male, all the parents most of the time around were male, assistants were male. So to be the only female in that sort of huge environment was huge. And for me was awesome, was an awesome experience.
Thank you for sharing it, because witnessing you go through that is, again, it's really cool. So again, for any students or potential coaches, you just got to get out there and do it. You got to put yourself in the deep end, you've got to apply yourself. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be horrible and scary and daunting, but the only way to get better is to do it. For me personally, you know, I always hated, and I'm still very fearful. This is a big honest moment for me of guest speaking and speaking to people and stuff. You can put me in front of 60 athletes on the soccer pitch and I'm comfortable now. Yeah. I don't have an issue. I can probably go talk to a classroom now and probably not be too concerned. But for 5, 6, 7 years, you know, I've been a little petrified human being of communicating, and you know, it's just this fear element. So it's that competence, confidence, or confidence loop. You have to do it. You have to apply yourself. Yeah, very good. Any likes or dislikes, Steph, within the industry?
Oh, that's it's going to open up a can of worms. Things I like about the industry, I guess. Social media would come down to a like and a dislike. I think it's an awesome platform for coaches to be able to, you know, show everyone their way of thinking, their reasoning behind exercises. It's an awesome platform to network as well. So I think for that, awesome in the industry. The dislike would be, it can be, for a new coach, it can be extremely overwhelming that you've got all these, you know, coaches that, you know, look confident behind the screen and videos and look like they know what they're doing and saying all these fancy words, and you sort of start to doubt yourself. You sort of think, you know, I need to be like that. You know, why aren't I posting content like that? You know, how can I do this? And that can be very, very negative aspect. Other things, I suppose, in the industry that I don't necessarily like is, without getting too specific, is, I suppose, particular coaches that give individuals, you know, an explanation or idea of how they should be training, how they need to be training, that isn't entirely correct or right, I suppose. Being nice about it, that makes a coach's job harder. Things like, you know, absolutely, you know, smashing your clients so they're sweating and they sort of can't breathe, and calling it conditioning work with, you know, little to no rest. Little things like that makes it a little bit harder for coaches that, you know, want to educate clients, getting them to sort of step away from that and move into what you're trying to preach is a little bit difficult. So and I know.
Sorry, I was going to say, so you're telling me that you don't have to sweat bullets and throw up to have a good conditioning session? Surely
exactly. Not. That's exactly what I'm telling you. You don't have to do burpees either.
and that if you're training a particular energy system, it might look and feel, you know, very, very different depending on that particular energy system. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. There's more training modalities than just 110%.
Absolutely. And you can also be sport specific. You can have sport specific training programs without even doing your sport. That's a huge one that I dislike, the emphasis on this program sport specific.
We better make a disclaimer that was full sarcasm, yeah?
It was all sarcasm.
All right. So the only way to be specific to your sport is to actually play the sport. It doesn't matter what you do. You can kick a soccer ball and jump up and down. It's not, you know, if you're doing plyometrics or strength training and kicking a soccer ball, it's not specific training. Specific training is the sport and the sport only. You can accommodate the specific sport by giving your clients more physical attributes, which is gym, strength, recovery, all the physical components, yeah? But you cannot replicate the specific sport unless you're playing the sport.
Absolutely.
It seems silly even saying that out loud, but I think we need to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Say it loud for the people in the back.
That's it.